Hello and welcome. I'm Andy Tepper. I'm a member of the International Committee of the Brooklyn Book Festival, and I've been doing this almost from the beginning. This is actually the 20th anniversary of the festival, and I'm very pleased to welcome our authors tonight for the virtual festival day. So let me introduce the writers. One is still to come, Mia Couto. We're waiting for him to join us, but very, very thrilled to have, let's see, Geetanjali Shree, who is the winner of the 2022 International Booker Prize for the novel Tomb of Sand. We're going to be talking to her about her novel that has recently come out here in America, Our City That Year. And she's also author of several other books, including coming out later, I guess this winter, The Roof Beneath Their Feet, published by And Other Stories and other works. Welcome, Geetanjali. I think you said you're in Berlin, right? Not India. Unmute. Are you muted? Okay.
I was being very obedient. Yeah, no,
You don't
that's
have to
fine.
be. And Alexis Wright, I'd like to welcome you. You were part of our virtual program, as we were saying, with Ngugi wa Thiong'o in 2020, our first kind of virtual program during the pandemic. You're in Australia. Alexis, I've come to your work more recently. New Directions has been doing some beautiful editions of your novels, Carpentaria, Praiseworthy, which came out this year. Beautiful book and an amazing book, and several other works. These have all won top prizes in Australia, including you've written nonfiction as well. And today we're going to be talking mainly about your book, I guess published a few years ago, also a top award-winning Miles Franklin Prize, a nonfiction book that's just come out here called Tracker.
Mhm.
So we'll talk about that. And hopefully Mia Couto, the Mozambican writer, will join us soon. His new book, well, of course, I've been following him for many years. He's the author of The Tune of Silences and most recently, a Mozambican trilogy, Woman of the Ashes, The Sword and the Spear, and The Drinker of Horizons. A theme or this panel about mapping history or mapping the fault lines of a country, which is something I think you all do in different ways in your work. I wanted to start, I think, with Gitanjali asking you about the city that our city that year, because it does capture a moment in India and a moment of history where there are these undercurrents going on, threatening violence, and I've read interviews with you, and you talk about in your introduction how you kept it unnamed. This is an unnamed city in India, and a lot of critics or readers kind of wanted to connect it to violence in India, real violence that happened in the early 90s. And of course, it also anticipates what was to come. But you write in your introduction that it could be actually now looking back at this book, which was published in 98, I believe. Today, it could be anywhere. It could be in the East. It could be in the West. It could be any city that has these undercurrents of violence.
As far as not name, let me start with that very specific point that you raise about me not giving the city and the year any specificity. I think that was not deliberate at all. And I think for me, the book is talking about certain trends which are getting worse and worse already in the early 90s, trends which can be, taken back to an even earlier time. So it's not sudden in that sense. And for me, the important thing was to see what was happening really in the atmosphere. And it was not happening in one city, and it was not happening just in one particular year. So while the protagonists belong to one city, and therefore the story happens in one city, for me, it was important to somehow know and indicate that this was something much larger than just that city. So, actually, it could be any city, and it could be many more years, as indeed it has turned out. And not just in India, it was already happening in India. More and more cities were engulfed by that kind of atmosphere, that kind of animosity, that kind of division, that kind of paranoia, and that kind of violence. But it's also something which we know does not belong just to India, certainly not today. So that is where it became a nameless city, because
Mm,
it's many cities in one.
mm. And Alexis, you call Tracker, this book that you've written, a collective memoir. Um, Tell me about the character it's based on and why it was important to write about his life and write about it in this form.
Tracker is thank you, Andy, and
Yeah.
really great to be part of the Brooklyn Writers Festival this year, and with G and Jali,
Mhm.
and and maybe Mia when he comes along. Uh, Tracker is a book about Tracker Tillmouth. And Tracker Tillmouth was the Eastern Aranda man from Central Australia, and he was an Aboriginal leader. He was a visionary, and he was a very, very important person in our world and in Australia as a whole. Um, he uh, um, he was an incredible man, a huge intellect, and um, and a very, very funny person. He had enormous wit. He knew how to get into any forum, any place, walk into a prime minister's office, ring him up in the middle of the night, and or walk in any room in Parliament, as as well as being loved and um and recognized, as for who he was and what he did for our people across communities, right across Australia, Aboriginal communities. He was a great thinker and an extraordinary person. A lot of our people would say Tracker was too much. He was one of a kind. Yeah, he
Why?
would even he would describe himself as a chameleon. He said, I could be whatever you want me to be." And but he what he was on about was building what he called the Vision Splendid, and which was about economics, about building a really safe, secure economy for Aboriginal people, particularly Aboriginal people in communities across Northern Australia, and in the in the Northern Territory where he came from. So I can talk about a lot more about
No.
Tracker, but he he passed away when he was
Yeah. Very, very.
62. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, yeah,
Yes.
not breaking up, and he died too soon, and he was extraordinary. He had ideas for everybody and everything. You walk down the street with Tracker anywhere, and people would pull him up and say, "Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that?" And he would he would acknowledge people and try to be a part of their world and their problems and try to find solutions for problems. And he was also very quick, to call people out to politicians government and bureaucrats and that, or industry people, miners and that, if they weren't, doing the right thing by our people. And it was a great strategist of working out, how to build these economies. And a lot of his plans were very big. He really needed a whole, you know, many people to build some of the things that he was talking about, but he was too far ahead for a lot of people, and it would take time to build some of those ideas, and he passed away too soon. I think that they was just starting to come to grips, what's the big ideas that he was talking about. And he had, yeah, so I could,
No. So you knew him very well personally.
Yeah, I did.
I'm curious how this book fits in with your other nonfiction work and how it's different from your fiction, from your novels. And then I want to talk about the multiple witnesses, the multiple voices that you both have in your books.
Mm. But with Tracker, he always wanted me to do his book, and then he got very ill, and I didn't really know how to do it because he was such a big, personality, big person in very important person, and I didn't think that a conventional biography written by me would be the way to do this book, because I would be giving my ideas about what I know about Tracker, or my take on things, and I thought for a long time about it, and I felt it had to be that's something that fits in our world, as we have an idea, we are a community, we work on community terms, and we're a collective. And so what happened in the end, it became a collective memoir of Tracker, many voices, and as I found out when I was doing the book, that Tracker, he never wrote down anything, but all his ideas are in the heads of so many people. That's his archive. All these people who knew him, and people knew him everywhere. This book could have been in many volumes, and from the amount of people had stories about Tracker. And I didn't know if it would work when I started
Yeah,
to
did
do
you
it.
feel it was growing
One
bigger and
person.
bigger and bigger?
Yes, it was getting bigger, and
Yeah.
but he chose the people who I talked to right across the country, and but there could have been a lot more, and it's a good, I think it is a good history of those years of Tracker's life, of what happened to Aboriginal people from when he was a small child at the age of 4, and his brother 3, and the other brother just a baby. The three, that when their mother died in Alice Springs in Central Australia, they were taken away and put on a mission, up 1,000 kilometers away from their family. So they didn't see their family again for 15 years, something like that, or more. And the older children from the first marriage of his mother, and the first 5 children, that because they were lighter skin, they were sent south. And so these little boys, they grew up with not even knowing they had these older brothers and sisters until they met them as adults.
Mm.
So, but the book, that's how it came about
Yeah.
as a collective memoir.
Mm. And Geetanjali, tell me about your book and the structure. You have 3 main characters and then witnessing what's going on. Why those 3? And then the narrator is this writer, an omniscient writer, and who's also juggling this idea of how do you make this literature or fiction or journalism, or what form does this take, if at all? I mean, the question of how a storyteller can capture this. Of course, one writer is having a hard time beginning her writing, right? But tell me about the multiple voices and witnesses of your book.
Well, let me say first of all that there are four main characters.
Yeah, right.
So there is a Hindu and a Muslim. I mean, the book is about religious communities, the two big religious communities in India, and their coexistence, full of friendships and hostilities and cooperation and distance over the centuries, if you will. So there are Hindu characters, and there's a Muslim character, and there is somebody who I would say in a way encapsulates the edifice of pluralism and togetherness and unity, which a lot of us believe India stands for, and that is the character Daddu.
Right.
So,
Dadu.
he is an iconic character, but he's also a very real character. I mean, he could be Gandhi, he could be some of the great poets in India, but he's a very real character. He's not just an imagined person. There are characters like that all over the country. So these four characters are the ones through whom the story is being told. Now, the narrator that you speak of, you use the word omniscient. And I would actually differ. And I would say that what's different about this narrator is her discovery that she is not omniscient. Omniscient means knowing everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, all knowing. Yeah, I guess
Yeah, all knowing.
all seeing,
She's
all
not that.
seeing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but she can be omnipresent in some
right.
sense.
Okay.
But the thing that she realizes, and that makes one of the, I would say, the main tone of the work, is that she does not know. She does not know everything. And partly this comes out of the fact that this is a history and this is a story which has been going on for so long in the country. And everyone seems to think they know, but they don't. You know, they have not been able to resolve the complication, the problem. It continues, it has new ramifications, and it's as live today as it was for a long, long time, in the past. So it's really the novel becomes something about not knowing, and I think that tone is very important. To realize that in fact there have not been closures, there have not been finished answers, and there is something which we still need to understand. Why is it that these two communities, which till recently, I mean, something happened in modern times when the whole notion of them being two separate nations came up. But till then, one of the most important thing was that they were living together in some sense as a family, with all the differences, with all the conflicts that can happen within the family. But there was never this idea that, one community does not belong here and needs to be thrown out. And today there's the notion of the alien, the foreigner, and in a very, very violent and volatile and very ugly way. So what is it that's happening which has, just trashed all the explanations we thought we had? Where is this coming from? And as a storyteller and as a fiction writer rather than a social scientist, I have to admit that I do not have answers, and I'm not even trying to give answers, but really saying that there's reason to relook at everything. There's reason to doubt some of our certitudes. We have too easily decided what was wrong and what needed to be done. There's something else which we are missing, which also comes from new developments that are happening, new dynamics of, I don't know, modern, insecure world that we've entered. I couldn't, I mean, I'm sure a social scientist could tell us much better, the new factors that we're dealing with. But the important thing in the book is this confusion. And that is why, when people say it's a book about Hindu fundamentalism, I always say it's not just that. It's also about certainly Islamic fundamentalism, it's about religious fundamentalism, but it's also about the secularists and what is the flaw in their thinking? What is it that they perhaps have not been sensitive towards and have not understood, without which they cannot really resolve this problem? So I do not know, nothing really gets resolved in the book, but I think it opens lots of directions and it gives an experience of well-meaning people who know only one thing, that they do not want violence and they do not want inhuman and ugly methods, but they do not know really how to bridge the distances that are being created. They do not know really how to reform the sort of rifts in their society. And it becomes a story about them facing themselves and possibly their failures hitherto, which is I hope, a beginning towards some kind of clarity, which might one day, bring down the walls.
Yeah, and tell me briefly how the form of the book
Yeah.
mirrors these ideas. You're known in your novels for writing from in different ways, different angles of approaching material. And in this book, you have very short passages, kind of jumping around from perspective.
Well, I mean, I think in all my works, my experience has been that they actually find their gait and their tone according to the theme as I go along. And in this one, since I did not have a clear chronological line, to follow, and it was really about confusions and explosions and multiple voices and many, many stories, because each one had a story from her or his point of view. So, how was that to come together? And I think what there was an image which stayed, which was, I mean, something from around the world, from the environment. I mean, it was where I was living and the kind of things that were happening, and it was the image of a bomb, explosion, which just threw everything into smithereens, which just went here and there and everywhere, and they lost their shape, and they were there in a kind of collage. And I think that is what transposed itself onto the pages as the form of the book, where there are all these different voices and different bits of the story and different bits of the character and different bits of history, which are, just strewn around in dismembered, splinters, which the narrator, who does not really know how to make sense of the story, cannot put into a kind of cogent shape, but decides, because of the urgency of the situation, because of some kind of panic that she can feel in the air and in herself, she just decides to put it all there in even in its disconnected form, in the hope that one day somebody will know what the right connections are and make a story which will then perhaps show humanity a way.
Yeah, I really do feel that collage-like sense of the book. Yeah, these disconnected fragments. Alexis, I want to talk about your novels and your form, the whole spirit of your books. Praiseworthy also, and we're talking about social and historical rifts, but you also talk about the environment and the climate and these kind of these repercussions that are happening to the land. And I'm thinking in the future, I'm thinking of the Swan book as well. But tell me how your novels, what you're approaching or what material that is gripping you in your novels, or what you're trying to express, and how you found that form. Um, yeah, especially, a book like Praiseworthy. Oh, you're muted, Alexis.
Thanks. With this one book, that was a novel that was set, in 100 years' time, and in the future. And what I was looking at in that book was, and given the politics in the country, and particularly politics about Aboriginal people, where we're heading, it seemed like we were going backwards instead of forward, in terms of government policy towards Aboriginal people. And I just started to wonder, where is that, if it doesn't change, where is it going to head? Where are we heading in the future in terms of Aboriginal people, and also in terms of the environment, because we're connected. The whole world is connected. We're all interconnected together, and so I was trying to figure out, where we're heading, and particularly as Aboriginal people. But at the same time, when I talk about our situation, I see similarities of what's happening to Indigenous people and poor people across the earth, and 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 uh, um and that we're the people who will be affected the most by global warming, and changes um, to the planet. And
And
so
Praiseworthy.
that's what I was thinking in that book. And then what I was trying to figure out was what would the last Aboriginal person standing would be like. And that's the Oblivia character in the book, in as an example. And with Praiseworthy,
Yeah, tell me about your voice in Praiseworthy, because it seems to be this major work that has been accumulating, has been
yeah,
building up for years.
yeah. Yeah, it took a while to produce. But at the same time, I was working, working other jobs, and what I do. And but with Praiseworthy, it started off with the idea, well, the more I write, the more I feel is that we need to be working, at scale, you know, for the scale of what's happening in the world. This is sort of literature I feel that is needed. So that's what my attempt at it. That's all. And and that and what I've seen through my life, and it's extraordinary. And the amount of things that happen, and how do you deal with that? We can't just sort of write little bits and pieces, and or just think, of ourselves as individual. The whole world is and everything in it is connected. Everything's important. Everything that's evolved. Other species, other the everything that we see is it has its right to be here. It's not just us. And um, so Praiseworthy developed with those ideas in the back of my head, and the idea of trying to push the boundaries of literature, and broaden it, and see where it takes you. And so yeah, and to describe things, and to bring all sorts of emotion and feeling into it. And it's a book, well, there's a haze that sits over this little place called Praiseworthy. And just listening to Cheese and Charlie, they're talking about the explosion And it just reminded me of the haze of praiseworthy just sitting on this place, and it doesn't go away. And there's a big issue on that community about why this haze is here and why won't it go, and they try all sorts of things to make it go. And the other character in the book is and they have all these churches, we have our own spirituality and beliefs and that, but people decided they would build all these, interdenominational churches, out of bits and pieces of rubbish, and that try to see if we could bring any other sort of power, spiritual power into, to bring, to find solutions to some of these problems. And so we have also a major character in the book called Planet, or Widespread, or Causeman Steely. It's got three names, and
Yeah,
he has a plan.
I love your names. Yeah.
And he has a plan, because this is also looking at, he's obsessed with global warming and what's happening with the world, and everyone else is, well, the ancestors will look after us. We'll be fine. That's how it's been for tens of thousands, or millions of years, and well, if we look after country, country will look after us, and that's true. But he said, he has this dream where that he will build this, when the planet runs out of fossil fuel, that he will have this transport system, this major transport system made up of donkeys, where it's a sustainable industry, and it's a major conglomerate he's trying to build out of. We've got 5 million feral donkeys in Northern Australia, so he's out to catch this donkey, this donkey to lead this transport system, and it's a funny, it's got a lot of fun in the story, and it's got a lot of seriousness.
Okay, great. We're joined now by Mia Couto in Mozambique. What a pleasure. Just to let you know again about Mia's work, I've been following him for many years, one of my favorite writers of all time. Most recently, he published a trilogy, a Mozambican trilogy called The Sands of the Emperor. This consisted of Women of the Ashes, The Sword and the Spear, and The Drinker of Horizons. He has won the 2014 Neustadt Prize for International Literature, and most recently, the PEN Nabokov Award for International Literature, which I was honored to be part of the jury to nominate him. His new book coming out this month is The Cartographer of Absences, published by FSG. And we kind of, Mia, use the title of that book for the theme of this conversation about mapping history, that idea of a cartographer and a cartographer of absences. And in the book, you describe storytellers as those who speak with shadows. So I want to talk to you about these shadows and how you write about them, the specific shadows of Mozambican history. And in this book, there's two storylines, two timelines, and one consists or revolves around a massacre that happened in 1973. Tell us about this incident, where it occurred, and why it was important for you to kind of unearth it, to explore it from different angles.
Right. Thank you so much, Andy. So I'll start by reading in Portuguese the first page. Do you mind? Can I start now? Okay.
Yes,
Sorry.
let's start with the reading, and then we'll have our conversation.
So this is the first page of the first chapter, which name you already quoted. It's those os que falam com as sombras, those who talk with the shadows. Todos temos duas sombras, apenas uma é visível. Há, porém, aqueles que conversam com a sua segunda sombra. Esses são os poetas. O Senhor é um dos que falam com as sombras. Tudo isto me é dito pelo porteiro à entrada da salão de festas. Acena com um livro de poesia, pede que me lhe faça uma dedicatória. Levanta os braços em gentil recusa. Não posso. Quem escreveu esse livro foi o meu pai. O homem encolhe os ombros, sorrindo e murmura. Então, o autor é você mesmo. Escrevo a dedicatória, torno-me uma espécie de autor póstumo. As mãos são minhas. A caligrafia é do meu falecido pai.
Thank you, Mia. I'll read it in English now. Chapter 1, Those Who Speak with the Shadows, Barra, March 6, 2019. Quote, my whole life was a rehearsal for something that never happened. Adriano Santiago. We all have two shadows. Only one is visible. But there are those who converse with their second shadow. Those people are poets. You, sir, are one of them, one of those who talk with shadows. This is what the doorman at the entrance to the ballroom says to me. He is brandishing a book of poetry and asks me to write something in it by way of a dedication. I raise my arms in a gesture of modest refusal. I can't. The author of that book was my father. The man shrugs, smiles, and murmurs, then you too are the author. I write the dedication and become a kind of posthumous author. The hands are mine, the handwriting is that of my late father. So Mia, tell me about this incident that happened in 1973 that you wanted to explore, and then let's talk about the father and son.
Right. So there was a massacre. I must give you the context. There was the Liberation War. We were a colony of Portugal, one of the latest colonies that that Europe has in Africa. After 10 years of struggle, armed struggle, the war comes next to my hometown. I was living in Beira, it's the center of Mozambique. And then my father was a poet and a journalist, and he realized that a massacre nearby, let's say 500 kilometers from my hometown, happened. A terrible one, because it was not just one moment, but they decide to repeat, the killings for days and days and days in a way that it will become less spectacular, but really the crime was dissolved in time in their minds. So my father was. He was not a direct testimony of what happened, but he knew. And he was a very shy person. He was really a poet involved in a big struggle. When the struggle was bigger than himself, he was not very courageous. So the idea was, I want my father to become my hero, to go and give me the example of. But it was loyal to the cause, but his fight was done in a different way. So this is part of the story of the book. My father was a very good man, perhaps too much good to be real, to be active. So that's part of the story.
And tell me how you blended or how you turned this real event and the real character of your father into fiction, into literature.
Yeah. You see, my first intention when I decided to write this book, or the book decided to come to me, I never know, was to that my hometown is very important to me. It's not just a place; it's something. I'm still born in there every day. Something new comes from there. So it was a kind of homage, an homage to my hometown, mother place. But then when I sent the first version of the book to the publisher, it told me this is really a book about your childhood and in the town.
Mm-hmm.
But when I sent the second version, said, no, it's not anymore a book about a place. It's a book about your father.
Mm-hmm.
So the place was without I have conscience, was was shifting from something geographical to something that is more deeper than that. Because the geography of my life, I was always changing the place where I'm coming from. My father was such a good man that whenever he has a conflict, he had a conflict with the neighbor, he changed for another place, another different neighborhood. So, and we're coming from Portugal, where all my family, all my past was there, and I didn't have any connection with that real family, that real people that was there. So my past was coming to me throughout stories from my
Yeah,
mother, from
yeah,
my father. So from my father. So the difference between what was real and what was coming through words and through fiction was something like a disease coming from my own beginning. I was
yeah.
constructed this dimension where my grandfather, well, I never knew a grandfather, grandmother, but they were there. They were inside my house.
Mm,
Real presence that were coming from words, from stories. So
mm.
the book is about the power of constructing something that is me, okay, that is my past and my place. Um,
Yeah, the book is about several different searches for the past from of different characters. And tell me about the storyline that takes place in the contemporary period, the Sun, and how you decided to structure the book in these alternating sections, first-hand account on one hand, and
yeah,
then these documents and transcripts and diaries, police
yeah,
reports from the past.
yes. You see, this is a kind of a strategy that I use in many other books. I mean,
Yeah, I was thinking the trilogy as well,
yeah,
right?
also, I mean, and I mean, I do this because I decided, but maybe it's a decision that is taken before me. I live in a country where orality is still so much alive. I mean, it's dominant. It's not like in the rest of the world that I'm visiting. So this is a people that think telling stories. That tell stories is not just a way of creating art, but it's a way of thinking, a way of being, existing in social terms. Um, so I think I have one foot in this orality, that I allow this orality to come inside the page of my book, and the other foot is in the writing world, or the written world. Um, so the dialogue between these different voices that only can be really expressed with authenticity, with true. I don't like the word authenticity, but in a true way, it's to allow this conversation between different voices. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's in purpose, by purpose. Yeah.
yeah. And just finally, a quick question about translation. What does it mean for you to have these books have through translation have a different life abroad, and what has that meant to your work? I know you've won top awards in Portugal. Your work is very important to the Portuguese speaking world, um, but as well in the US now, in Europe and other places.
Yeah, you see, I'm not trying to escape for your question, but I feel myself as a translator. You see, the most important things that I relate with in my country are happening in another language. Not only in another language, in another culture. I remember I was asking the name of the river. I'm
Hmm.
a by profession, so I met a old woman seated next to a river, and I asked her, what is the name of this river? And she said, Matiwakunimba, or Matiwakunimba in that language means the pregnant water. So this is for me, it's poetry, but for her, it's something natural.
Hmm.
Okay? Because
Hmm.
river, in a cyclical way, is flooded. So I'm defining myself before I'm a writer. I'm a translator of words. So
Mm.
and I know how it's possible, even if you don't have the same kind of. It's not a technical issue. It's a kind of translating different knowledge, different sensibilities, and it is always possible if you have time and if you are in a direct connection with the translator, where you can speak and explain how the culture of where this specific word is born. It's not just a linguistic issue. It's a different challenge. It's more than that. Yeah.
Thank you, Mia. Oh, yeah,
Thank you.
go ahead.
No, I was just asking, did I reply to your question?
You did. And I love that phrase, a translator of worlds. And that's what you've always meant to me. And I'm just so grateful that we have your books in English as well.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate all you have done for not just my work, but the work for other African writers that are not well known in the rest of the world. Thank you, Andy. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mia. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Okay. And I did want to mention for everyone watching that you can purchase the books. There's a link in the chat to buy the books. Thank you. I think we have 2 minutes each, maybe, to do a short reading, just to get a sense of your voice. Alexis, do you have something you'd like to read?
Yes, Andy. I might just read from Praiseworthy, just
Great.
a small bit, and if I have time, I'll bit from Tracker. I'm not too sure. And this is just from near the beginning of the book, about the haze. This old grief haze cuts a powerful image from 40,000 feet up in the sky, where ancestral serpents roam through the remnants of migrating angels. And you, looking down from the window seat up front of a QF Qantas flight cruising over the northern flat country, would see the grand improbabilities. Yes, the supercell anomaly was a miracle on Earth, but not a good one. Sometimes the haze floated, rested on the dust-coated leaves, on the rooftops, on every space, house, person, on the dog's fur, bird's feathers, or else the thing charged up its weather system into an atmospheric mess of dry electrical storms full of dust. Junda. From the sky, you could look down to see the supercell rotating from where it sat permanently over Praiseworthy, lingering with its belly hovering just centimeters above the ground, as though it was resting on a head full of swifty dit imaginings. The gravitational force of the slow-moving cloud of haze, pushed by the great ancestral government and held together as though magnetized, hanging like a shadow that made the place perpetually looking sepia like suptime.
Thank you. Thank you, Alexis.
I'll
Geetanjali,
just
you want it?
Yeah, go on. Probably running
Yeah,
out of time.
let's go. Let's go to Geetanjali.
Okay, so I'm happy to read, but I have to read the full bit. It should be 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah, of
Okay.
course.
Yeah.
Of course.
And it's a fairly straight piece. I'll just say it very quickly. It's about a Hindu and a Muslim couple. You know, one is Muslim, one is Hindu. And it's the writer who's not able to write, but who feels it's very important to write. And the thing that concerns her is this whole obsession with identity that we have today, you know, an identity which has become something very, very narrow and tight and absolutely rigid. And there's this little excerpt I'm reading, worrying about this whole love for identity that has, you know, overtaken us all today. So the name of the Hindu woman is Shruti, and the name of her husband is Hanif. He's Muslim. Shruti sits silently, but her pen is carefully capped. She begins to laugh and picks it up. If she writes, she'll uncap it. She's silent again. But what's this? She's speaking to herself. Has she adopted Daddu's habit, murmuring to herself and shaking her head? Nothing clear is coming out. Hanif, she yells suddenly. A yes comes in response from the bathroom. Am I Hindu? No answer. Whether I like it or not, I'm Hindu. Maybe, says the voice emanating from the bathroom. Sharad too? Yes. You? No. Are you Muslim? Yes. But not me? Shruti, the bathroom voice laughs. I'm more like Sharad, less like you. There's probably some strand you two share that matches, says the bathroom. And you don't have that strand? The bathroom is silent. I'm a woman, she says. I don't know. What was that? Shruti calls out again. I was speaking of Hindu strands, not about the woman part. The bathroom retorts whimsically. My father was Punjabi. The bathroom is silent. Was he or wasn't he? Of course he was, Baba. The sound of running water brackets the voice. My mother was Banarsi. Yes. Then how many strands are there in me and Sharad but not in you? The bathroom door opens and Hanif comes out in an undershirt and a pair of shorts, toweling his damp hair. Shruti stands. She narrows her eyes and says, why should I sort through every one of my strands? Whatever I am, I'm complete. Why should I declare one particular strand to be the real me? If I pull it out and display it separately, will it remain a part of me or transform into a separately dangling limb? She holds her fingers together in the air as though holding up a loose strand which is connected to nobody, swinging lifelessly. Why are you standing up and why are you scolding? Hanif approaches her, laughing. I'm scolding because why don't you wear a bathrobe? If you come out practically naked like that, you'll catch a cold. Array, don't scold, Hanif stops her. You please write. I'll get the clothes myself. Shruti sits down with a thud and quickly uncaps her pen and begins to write. Why should I separate each strand, each color from my full identity? Whatever I am is beautifully robust in my consciousness. Why should I forcibly awaken it, choose some aspect of it, abandon others? In doing so, my soul contracts. The dignity of myself shrinks. Its diversity, its simple, beautiful form is ruined, making this bit hazy, darkening that bit, pulling this way, suppressing that way. We are distorting, contorting our own form and degrading them. I won't, she says to Hanif irritably. Now what? He smiles. I'm liquid, so I flow. I'm light. I'm a wave. What can you do? Nothing, nothing. Hanif ducks as though he's being attacked. If they pull out some tiny bit of me and hold it up and highlight and crystallize just that, why should I accept it? She asks sternly. You're looking very stern right now, laughs Hanif. I'm averse to stern, narrow definitions, laughs Shruti. She picks up the sheet of paper from the table and proceeds to tear it to pieces. You wrote something? No, no, no. Why are you ripping it up? Hanif races over. Shruti smooshes the scraps together and rushes over to the dustbin, her eyes fixed mutinously on Hanif. Suddenly, a book falls to the floor with a crash. Before she can stop herself, she grazes it with her foot. Oh no, she picks up the book and touches it to her forehead. Is this action Hindu or Muslim? She turns to look at him, her head still bowed.
Thank you. Thank you both. That was wonderful. But I just want to also tell the audience to remember you can order the books through the link in the chat. Please consider making a donation to the Brooklyn Book Festival, which is celebrating its 20th year presenting free literary programming. Today kicks off 9 days of the Brooklyn Book Festival events, including citywide bookend events, the festival's in-person Children's Day and Festival Day that takes place on September 20th and 21st in downtown Brooklyn, all free to attend. Thank you both for being part of the Brooklyn Book Festival's 20th anniversary, and it's been a pleasure to talk to you.